Do you have rosacea? You might not even know, because this is rosacea, this is rosacea, this is rosacea, this is rosacea, even this might be rosacea. So we will be diving deep into the world of rosacea. What's up, everyone? We're back. I'm Dr. Shah. Dr. Maxfield.
Welcome back to our channel, Dr. Lee, where we talk about all things skincare and dermatology. And this is actually an update video. We shot our first rosacea video almost 4 years ago now. The quality of our camera has improved. We've gotten older, but we also have some updated product recommendations and some really helpful tips that we've learned along the way over the last 4 years. We felt it was worth updating this video.
Right, and we found there are some very nuanced things that are going to impact how your rosacea progresses over time. And there might be some things that you're doing that may be making it worse in the long run. So all of that and all things rosacea, here we go. Here we go.
First, let's talk about what rosacea looks like, because it looks like a lot of things. Sometimes it looks like acne, sometimes it's just facial flushing, sometimes your nose can get much larger due to enlarged oil glands, sometimes you can have trouble seeing due to ocular rosacea. So there's really 4 main types of rosacea that we're going to talk about in this video, and we're going to actually break it down by type, and we're going to recommend treatments by the type, because I think that's going to be the most helpful way to do this video. It's the same way we did the video in the past, but there is one, the redness type of rosacea, the vascular rosacea, erythematotelangiectatic rosacea. Then you have Papulopustular rosacea. Then you have Phymatous rosacea. And then finally, ocular rosacea. We used to consider perioral dermatitis to be part of rosacea. We no longer do, even though they have some overlapping treatments. So let's talk about what actually causes rosacea, the underlying skin condition.
Right, and so this is all loosely connected by this baseline increase of inflammation and inflammatory signaling. That then can lead to things like increased oil production, or may signal for vascular dilation and increased vascular reactiveness, sensitive skin. But really it's this like smoldering level of inflammation caused by cell markers or cell signals like cathelicidins, matrix metalloproteinases, or other inflammatory markers that kind of are always active and shouldn't be. So it's like a hyperactive arm of your immune system, not autoimmune, to be very clear. It is not autoimmune, but it's like an arm of the immune system. It's hyperactive, kind of this small smoldering fire that's just waiting to be triggered.
So there's an upregulation of both the neural and the vascular component of this condition, which is why a lot of people, due to the dilation of their blood vessels, get flushing, but also their skin is quite sensitive. They get burning and itching because of the upregulation of the neural component of this condition. And so let's first talk about erythematotelangiectatic rosacea, the vascular form of rosacea.
First off, round of applause for Dr. Shah. That is possibly, like if you just look at your screen, this is possibly one of the longest words in the English language, and he said it correctly twice. Now, this condition is also equally difficult because it's a structural change that becomes persistent and irreversible over time. And my quick caveat for this is all topicals are going to struggle. Like topical treatments are really going to struggle to get this under control. But what can you do? The first step is actually prevention. Multiple things will cause this to get worse over time or trigger flares, and you're probably doing some of these things in daily life. The first of which I will say is simply sun exposure. Like it just is what it is. Sun can cause this to flare, trigger the vessel reactiveness, and again, worsen this condition.
Yeah, so we have evidence that shows that UVB radiation can actually stimulate that neurovascular component of the condition, which can actually upregulate your blood vessel production, making those permanent blood vessels stick around. And like Dr. Maxfield said, the reason why you'll see all these products that promise to treat rosacea and they don't work and they're disappointing is because what's happening underneath the skin is an actual change in your blood vessel diameter and the amount of your blood vessels that are in that area. So it's a structural change in the skin that is quite deep into the skin. And so a lot of your topical treatments are only really going to mask or have a temporary effect on the skin. And so we'll talk about some of the permanent treatments as well, but the first thing you can do is definitely sun protection.
And beyond sun protection, let's imagine we're all going on a date. Like, just play with me here. So we go out to a fancy restaurant. Oh, it's a good restaurant because they have spicy food, which we love. And they also have red wine, and they also have like a nice hot beverage. Guess what? All of those things just made your rosacea worse. Now the date is horrible. Our whole evening is ruined. But there are a lot of foods that actually can make this worse. But again, most classically, it's like your red wine, your spicy food, hot temperature beverages, not necessarily coffee, but just hot temperature beverages. All those can cause flares.
And yes, just absolutely heat in general. So avoiding some of those things are certainly going to help you. Additionally, skincare products that can irritate the skin, your menthols, your peppermints, these also contribute to flaring your rosacea. So like we've said in the past, treat your rosacea as if you have sensitive skin for the most part. So really look for those fragrance-free products and avoid those common allergens. So let's talk about some of the ingredients that can actually help a little bit with this redness form of rosacea.
So there are some ingredients both over the counter and prescription that can be helpful. Over the counter, you want things like neurosensine, which has been studied and published to help rosacea, or other general soothing ingredients like panthenol, azelaic acid. Niacinamide can be helpful, maybe hit or miss for some people. I mean, cica, green tea extract. There's a lot of different ways to soothe the skin to help offset some of this irritation.
Yeah, so there's really kind of three ways that you can look at the way that you want your topicals to work in this redness form of rosacea. Is one, you want it to just calm and soothe the skin. So products that are calming and soothing to the skin, like Dr. Maxfield said, cica, a lot of our Korean products have these types of ingredients that are just calming and soothing to the skin. So that's one. Two, anything that can like squeeze or hug your blood vessels or cause them to constrict. Things like potentially caffeine could be helpful in this scenario. And then we also have some prescription topicals that really doing a phenomenal job at constricting those blood vessels, albeit temporarily. And then finally, masking the redness. And so this is where our chromium green oxides come into effect. So if you remember the color wheel, on the opposite of red is green. And so if you use a green tinted makeup, all of our makeup artist friends already know this, or a lot of our friends with rosacea already know this as well. If you use a green tinted moisturizer, sunscreen, or makeup product, it can balance out some of those redness. And so these are the types of ingredients you want to look for in your products.
Yep, so soothe, constrict blood vessels, or mask. And that's where our products are going to live. And some products provide multiple benefits. There really are some gems in this list. So the first product we'll talk about is actually from La Roche-Posay. Like I said, they published their studies. This product is the Hilarion Rosalaic AR Visible Redness Reducing Moisturizer that's tested on redness-prone skin, but really it has some great complementing ingredients. It has neurosensing to soothe the skin. It has chromium to help blend and mask some of the redness. And it has other soothing ingredients to, again, just kind of calm everything down. So it's a lot of steps all in one.
La Roche-Posay really does test their products on really sensitive and rosacea-prone skin. They have a treatment center in France where they really look at people with sort of extreme skin conditions, especially eczema, and they really analyze like how these products affect the skin, their thermal spring water, and some of the prebiotics, probiotics that are in the water as well. But what's nice about this product, like Dr. Maxfield says, it also has a light green tint to it. So this is not a heavy tint where it's going to completely mask your redness, but it may give you mild, immediate sort of makeup relief while using this product, in addition to the ingredients that are actually going to calm the skin down and help with some of that irritation.
Right, and there are other products out there to mask. One we've mentioned before is Dr. Jart's Tiger Camo Sun
Camo Drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Jart Camo Drops is another option. And then another really popular one that's actually really quite affordable is the Hero Cosmetics Rescue Balm. So this is their redness correct, color correcting green serum. This is a heavier color correction, much heavier color correction than the La Roche-Posay one. So it can be a little heavy for some people, but I think it's going to do a better job correcting color than the La Roche-Posay one. And then there's another one from like Herborian, which I haven't tried, but a lot of other people have recommended that one as well. I saw Dr. James Welsh also recommending this product. Might as well be a doctor at this point. And he's got rosacea, so I really trust his personal recommendations on this topic.
Yeah, and the other end of the spectrum is also Lumen. They have a redness color corrector. I would say you're going to have be a really light in skin tone for that one to work. Like the other error on this is you like overcorrect and you end up just looking casty and pasty. The Lumen one, again, you have to light skin tone, but that's the far end of masking.
Then, like we said, azelaic acid products are a really good option here. This is actually going to be good for the first two types of rosaceas. You're going to see these products recommended again, but Theramid has a 15% azelaic acid product, which I don't know how they're doing this, but it's out there. It's actually quite an elegant formula. There's also other ones you can buy in the US, like the Ordinary, Paula's Choice. It has a little bit of salicylic acid in it, so it might not be the best choice for people with rosacea. And then finally, Naturium also has an azelaic acid product, but this is the direction that I would go if you have rosacea. And then if that doesn't work for you, I'd move on to the prescription options.
Now for prescriptions, there's a big discrepancy in effectiveness. And I actually caveat this with my patients very heavily, because the most common complaint I get from patients with this type of rosacea is like, hey, my doctor prescribed this and it didn't help. And in my opinion, the expectation is wrong. So most of these treatments are not going to do an effective job or dramatic job at reversing the redness that already exists. They can slow the progression. Statistically, they can help the redness. Clinically, sometimes it doesn't feel impactful. One of the first ones that you're going to probably get prescribed first is metronidazole. Gel or lotion doesn't matter. This is the topical antimicrobial that has been studied in rosacea and has been also shown to help the redness, albeit slightly.
So metronidazole is a great option. It's usually actually where I start my patients. And then next would be the vasoconstricting component. And this is where you're going to see a lot more effect than the over-the-counter product. So you really have two groups here. You have brimonidine and you also have oxymetazoline.
Right, and there's a huge difference between these two. So brimonidine, or Mirvaso being the trade name, this is an alpha-2 agonist. And let's say the mechanism is kind of too deep to go into here, but basically this constricts blood vessels. But the key distinguishing feature is a very significant portion of people in this, 10 to up to 20% of people using this ingredient will have, sorry, we've got Teddy here.
It's my dog. He's going nuts. It's fine.
It is fine. So we've got up to 20% of people who use this product will not only experience some sort of rebound flare when they stop, but they also might experience worsening redness while they're on the treatment. And then if they do stop, the redness can be worse than before. Now, interestingly, it is very specific to this product and this ingredient. If you use oxymetazoline, the brand name of this one is Rofade, that problem is almost non-existent from a statistical standpoint.
Right. And we see similar effects, which is why you'll see ophthalmologists a lot of times say not to use Visine, because you also get a lot of this rebound redness and dilation of vessels that could actually make things quite worse. This is also the same reason. What's the one that goes in the nose?
Ooh, that stuff's horrible.
Afrin has sort of the same effect where it can have a temporizing measure where you're like, wow, it looks great, feels great for a while, but then soon it comes back fast and furious. And so the move here would be to go with oxymetazoline.
Now, to talk about like getting these ingredients, it gets complicated because you're talking about like very specific trademark brands, and we'll talk about an extreme cost on another one when we talk about treatment of a different type of rosacea. But one way to get these is a lot of dermatologist office will use a specialty pharmacy and they'll have these products compounded into one step, like combining a lot of these different treatments. Because of the difficulty of ingredients with rosacea in general, like with script, and like I suffer from rosacea, a lot of people, my patients, it's just so hard for dermatologists to treat rosacea effectively, cost effectively. And so with script, like we've deliberately like made what I believe to be, I mean, it's hard to argue, like one of the best products for this. I have it here because I actually wanted to use it. I haven't put it on yet today, and I know it's here, and I'm determined to wear this.
A few moments later.
So this combines multiple things: azelaic acid, 15%, ivermectin, 1%, metronidazole, and then oxymetazoline, the alpha-1 agonist to constrict the blood vessels to really cover all of your bases. And it's in like a hydrating cream to moisturize the skin as well. Again, I hadn't used it yet today. I'm very consistent with this because there are very few things that can help rosacea significantly, and it takes a lot. So now the left side of my face is treated.
Yeah, so this pretty much has your all-in-one, so we'll kind of see how his redness improves throughout the video, hopefully. But this is your all-in-one treatment for rosacea, only available by prescription, and you can get it through the Script Derm website, where you'll consult with a physician, and then they'll be able to send you this product, especially if you're in the United States. Now, if you don't have access to Script Derm or you have a dermatologist, speak to them, and they can prescribe the right option for you. But this is a really good all-in-one prescription option for you to use. The only thing falling short here would be that you'd still need potentially to use a color-correcting treatment in the morning. Now, that being said, I want to talk a little bit about skincare in this category, because what's really important is trying to find things that are not going to irritate your skin. But one of the things that you'll see is the rosacea seal on your products that are available over the counter. Now, what that means is that the product does not treat rosacea. So I think a lot of my patients think this. The products are safe for rosacea-prone skin, which means it doesn't contain common ingredients that tend to irritate rosacea. Now, their list is actually not very comprehensive, and so I found a lot of products that have the rosacea seal that are still quite irritating to people with rosacea. But that being said, just remember that rosacea seal does not mean that it treats rosacea, but that the ingredient list that Rosacea Society doesn't want in products are not in those products, if that makes sense.
Right, so it's not saying it's going to necessarily help it, but it's more so saying it's not going to hurt it. I mean, interesting tidbit here, like this is a little factoid, so it's probably irrelevant to you. The different vasoconstrictors, because he said something about like, we'll watch my redness fade. Interestingly though, superfacial, brimonidine causes it to fade within an hour, where classically oxymetolazone causes it to fade around 2 to 3 hours. So it actually causes the redness to blanch more slowly. So just have expectations when you use these products. Like, it actually is something you should put on earlier in the morning, expect improvement kind of mid-morning, and then last throughout the day. It lasts like 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah, and again, this is an absolutely genius formulation. So then really importantly in this category is, like we said, these blood vessels are an actual structure within the skin, and this is where your laser treatments are going to make a massive difference. And this is where I would say that my patients with rosacea who are super frustrated, have tried all the products and are just not seeing consistent results, or need to be on these prescription treatments over a long period of time, they're super excited when we get them a laser treatment. So things that target redness like IPL, like KTP, like PDL are going to make a huge difference because they actually destroy the blood vessels that are upregulated in rosacea. Now, a lot of people say, well, like, is it good to destroy the blood vessels? Yes, these are abnormal blood vessels. So your regular blood vessels that supply blood to your skin are still going to be intact. It's just those superficial telangiectatic vessels would be destroyed with this laser treatment.
Yep, and again, I'm harping on expectations in this video because of how difficult rosacea is to treat. So if you have clear, distinct, like in focus vessels, I highly recommend laser. If you have like a diffuse flush, I think IPL is actually going to give you a better result. But even with a good result, in the studies, the improvement is quantified between like 30 and 40% improvement. So, people may get better results, but on average, people might at best experience like a half improvement of the redness in flushing, although the individual vessels do respond quite well.
Yeah, they respond phenomenally well. I can show a video here from our office of us just destroying these vessels, which is a super satisfying thing to watch, but incredibly effective if the vessels are very clearly in focus. So next up, the second type of rosacea is Papulopustular rosacea. This is one of the more common forms of rosacea, and we have more treatments in this category. And actually, the script derm is going to work really great here, so we'll talk about that again at the end. But what is this? This actually looks like acne in some ways. So some people refer to this as adult acne, but it's what looks like little bumps, little red bumps on the skin, usually in the central face area, but they're unlike acne because you can't really pop these. And if you did, they're quite painful.
Right. Again, there are key distinguishers here, and because people with rosacea do have more sensitive skin, hero ingredients for acne like tretinoin, you may not be able to tolerate it. Like, it might not actually work for you here. So there are going to be different ingredients that are going to target this perhaps more effectively, that play better with your skin type. One of the first ones, actually, let's start with this one. This one's wild. So this one can work really well. It's ivermectin, topical ivermectin. Why? Because it actually treats the mites, and the mites have a pretty prominent role in especially the acneiform. The problem with this ingredient is the crazy cost. Like, I'm going to look up GoodRx here, and if you don't have GoodRx, please use GoodRx for all of your prescription needs. Ivermectin topically goes under the trade name Soolantra. It's not a new medication. For a tube of cream, it is still $600+.
Absolutely.
It's never covered.
Ridiculous. It's never covered. No healthcare insurance company wants to cover these things. And so you can't even get this medication. So now they have some generic forms. You can also get them compounded. But the key here is remembering that we did find recently that this Demodex mite that lives on all of our skins in people with rosacea, even the ocular form of rosacea, which we'll talk about later, that this Demodex mite can actually flare rosacea in some people. So some people have tried a lot of other ingredients, and they try ivermectin and they're like, wow, it wipes out those Demodex mites, and then the rosacea gets much, much better. Now, since we shot our last video, what's been really amazing is that ivermectin is now available over the counter at 0.5%. Now, in general, we recommend 1% when we're prescribing it in the office, but 0.5% is available over the counter as a lice treatment in a cream. Now, it's not approved for rosacea, but it is the same active ingredient that is used in these rosacea creams, albeit at a much lower dose, or half the dose. Now, if you want to get it at the proper dose of 1%, you do need to get a prescription.
Right, so that's the hack on how to get this ingredient if you're looking for it over the counter. Now, I will say that the acne form of rosacea is the best to respond. It most consistently responds to ingredients. It's the easiest to treat out of the entire family. So your azelaic acid will also be helpful here. Topically, you can also find ingredients like sulfur, or specifically sulfur sulfacetamide. This combination is typically prescribed often in a cleanser, and I love this cleanser for rosacea skin. Sulfur alone can be helpful. I find that most of the sulfur cleansers over the counter are really expensive, and a lot of them have irritating ingredients. So this is one of the few times I actually feel like the prescription version is not only more effective, but also more elegant and hopefully more cost effective as well.
Right, and we also have some sulfur leave-on masks that you can try. These are both great for acne and for rosacea, interestingly enough. So you can also try some of these sulfur masks that are available out there. And then finally, prescription oral tetracyclines make a massive difference in this category. So a lot of people hate taking oral medications, myself included, but I will say that when you take an oral medication like tetracycline, specifically either doxycycline, especially at some lower doses, makes a huge difference to people that have this type of rosacea. It will knock it down almost immediately. And so what I tell my patients, and of course talk to your dermatologist if this is appropriate to you, is that when you have a flare like this and it's going to interfere with your day, or you really want to knock it down quickly, keep some doxycycline on hand so that you can knock down flares. So I'll tell people, use doxycycline for a week, which is not the generally recommended form for somebody who has an infection, but to knock down a flare of rosacea, I find it to be very effective, and to actually keep it on hand until it expires so that you can knock down flares.
Yeah, it's extremely effective. And sometimes what you have to do is just burst it back with that and then use the rest of what we've talked about for maintenance to keep it at bay.
Yep. And then this is, again, another really good option here would be that script derm medication, which has your azelaic acid. It has your oxymetazoline that's going to help with the redness. It has the ivermectin that's going to help with the mites. And it also has
the metronidazole.
Right. So really kind of a comprehensive treatment for these first two forms of rosacea. Now, let's move on to the Phymatous form of rosacea, which is the most disfiguring form of rosacea and something you need to treat pretty quickly. Otherwise, you're going to need some type of surgical procedure to reverse it.
So this condition is where the individual oil glands grow, but it's not just oil glands, it's actually the structure around it that's the biggest problem. In fact, the later stages are called a fibrous stage, where the supporting structures are quite pronounced and really make up the bulk of the condition. And microscopically, actually, if you take a look at this under the microscope, there's more oil gland and more stroma than skin. It's crazy how this can just take over a person's face.
Yeah, and the skin is extremely thick. And then when it gets to that point, your topical treatments are almost going to have no effect on this, which is why getting this under control sooner rather than later makes a big difference. And this is where you see those sort of disfigured noses, really long noses. And if you've seen somebody like this, they generally have something called this Phymatous rosacea. And now that we, have advanced in our careers and we do a lot more surgeries on the face, when somebody has this type of rosacea, or even the redness form of rosacea, we actually do notice that blood flow to the skin is actually super pronounced, making surgeries difficult in this area just because of the increased blood flow. It makes it much messier for us.
Yes, one way to say it for sure. So all the topicals that help with oil production historically, like tretinoin, green tea, niacinamide, although something you could do, may not be impactful in the long run and won't probably change the trajectory of the growth of these glands. So because of that, you can again try things like oral doxycycline that may be helpful for some people. And this is a case use scenario for oral isotretinoin or Accutane.
Right. So oral isotretinoin or Accutane is an incredible treatment for acne. Now, it does come with a slew of side effects, and we probably are overdue to do a whole video on isotretinoin in general. But when used under the proper conditions and when you're monitored properly, and you make sure that if you're a female, you don't get pregnant while you're on this medication, then it can be an incredibly effective treatment for both acne and for this form of rosacea, because it helps to actually shrink your oil glands to really target this Phymatous form of rosacea. And so for some people, it's the only thing that's going to work to reverse this condition.
Right. And so it has been shown, albeit not 100% of the time, to again prevent the progression of this to the Phymatous nose. And it's really the only thing a person might be able to do to prevent surgery. And then again, at the end of it, if you do have this large Phymatous nose, you are at the point where you need surgery. There's different ways to do it. The scope is kind of beyond what we're talking about here, but I will say the results can be extremely dramatic to the point of life-changing. So if you do have this type of rosacea, if the growth has become quite prominent and it really bothers you, I would aggressively pursue getting this treated. Not every dermatologist does this surgery, so you're going to have to take a look and invest around either in a specific dermatologist or plastic surgeon. But if it does affect your life significantly, the outcomes can be transformative.
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating about this, which kind of doubles down on that oil production part of this condition, is when we are cutting into these, you'll see a phenomenal amount of trapped oil actually get pushed out from the glands as you take layers and layers off of the skin to get it back to the normal shape. So it really is interesting that the pathogenesis of this disease, like I said, that increased blood vessel flow, that increased oil that's occurring, you actually see it visually when you're working on these patients. And so that's why we really try to treat the root cause of this. Again, I think retinoids here in general, topically, if there's one thing I would say could potentially be helpful, helpful. It would be a very powerful retinoid like tretinoin in this condition. So next, let's talk about ocular rosacea.
So ocular rosacea is often missed because obviously it's not a part of the skin. The signs and symptoms can be subtle initially. Sometimes it will be redness and irritation along the lid margin, like right where the skin starts to meet the mucosa where the eyelashes live. That's probably one of the more common presentations. Otherwise, it can feel like a gritty, irritated sensation of the eye itself.
Yeah, so it could be simply just like, I feel like something got sand in my eye. That could be the symptoms of ocular rosacea. And if you look very closely, a lot of these patients will have those dilated blood vessels along the eyelid margin, and there are ophthalmologists that will actually treat this.
Right, and so topically you can use different types of drops from your ophthalmologist. Oral doxycycline is one of the more common treatments, again, to control this type, and it is probably worth it if you have progressive ocular rosacea because it is important to treat this early so it doesn't cause any structural damage to the eye itself.
Absolutely. Now, I would not put the scripter medication along the eyelid margin. It would probably be very uncomfortable for you, so just be cautious there. I would not use it along the eyelid margin, but we do find that Demodex mites, which ivermectin can be helpful for treating, can be a cause of this ocular form of rosacea. But my preferred form of this would be to actually use oral ivermectin for a brief period of time.
And then perhaps the last treatment that you might see, especially with ophthalmologists, is you can use IPL here, which is kind of interesting. It's just a very close balance of like protecting the eye and then also treating this area too. But IPL, you'll see that advertised occasionally as helping ocular rosacea.
Yeah, and some people absolutely swear by it. Once they get this treatment done, they notice an improvement in just the uncomfortableness that they feel around their eye. So this pretty much covers the 4 types of rosacea. Definitely a longer video, but we've definitely updated our product recommendations quite a bit. It is a frustrating condition, and I will tell you that with acne, I kind of generally have a plan for most of my patients. Like the average acne patient, I kind of put them on a very similar regimen. I would say most of my patients that come in for acne, it's like 90% of them are going to need a very similar regimen. With rosacea, you know, I have to really pick and choose, and oftentimes the first treatment does not work. So don't get frustrated if the first thing that you try, let's say you buy azelaic acid product, you don't see improvement. This is very commonplace for rosacea where you're going to need to try multiple different things so you find the right combination that's going to work for you.
Yeah, it's very personalized. We said at the beginning of our first video, we're saying it at the end here, like you're going to have some grace with your dermatologist and some patience because it is so individualized that not everyone responds to the same thing. No one responds to everything consistently, and it's going to take a while to get the results you want. Let me also throw this caveat in there. I just thought of this. This is a formulary bottle, by the way. So this is like what they send to me to test like the formula and how it feels. But I actually use these products. Like I don't want to throw this away. So that's why this tester, this is not like the packaging. I just want to throw that out there so you know.
With Remedy, I only use like the testers. So like I'm like, oh, just save the real products because we're always like low inventory. So I'm like, I'll just save those for real customers, and I use all the tester bottles myself. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us over the last 4 years. If you're somebody who watched our original video on rosacea, thank you for all the support. I mean, obviously, you know, we've come a long way. We've definitely, like I said, aged, but we've been able to grow with you. And now he's got Script Derm, I have Remedy, which is actually just kind of a cool full circle moment. Hopefully you all found this video helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.
We'll see you next time.